First, he is the man getting national attention for being, quote, the deciding vote on whether the Senate should debate an Obamacare repeal bill. Joining me is Wisconsin Senior Senator Ron Johnson. Good morning, sir. How are you? Oh, I got to push the button. I'm negligent in my basic show host duties. I didn't push the button allowing you on. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Jay. How are you doing?
Doing well. Let's start with the decision to cast a vote to proceed with debate. Was it an easy decision or a hard one?
No, I think in the end it was a pretty easy decision because we've got to keep the process going. Obamacare is such a mess. Jay, I got an email from one of my staff members who had talked to a family in Wisconsin. It's just an incredibly sad story. They literally had to sell their house so they wouldn't lose it. These individuals, I think, make about $59,000 a year. They originally were getting Obamacare subsidies, but then when they did their taxes, their income was a little bit too much. They lost their subsidies, had to pay them back, literally had to sell their house so they wouldn't lose it in foreclosure to pay off the debt. I mean, it's just unbelievably sad. And that's what I continue, it's folks like that I continue to fight for because we are not addressing the root cause of what caused their premiums to double and triple. And they're spending 51% of their $59,000 salary on health insurance.
That's insane. That's what's working.
So Obamacare is such a mess. This process is pretty ugly. I've been pretty open in terms of I haven't appreciated the lack of information, the lack of an organized approach here, the lack of root cause analysis. But no, we have to keep this process going because we've got to fix this mess.
I can't believe that that's the type of thing that the Democrats want to say is working. You were the final vote, but in that situation, everyone is really the deciding vote. I was just wondering, did you delay your vote until McCain voted so there wasn't some added crap storm coming down on a sick man's head here?
It really was happenstance. I was literally doing an interview with the FBI director nominee, Christopher Wray, which is a pretty important interview, particularly as it relates to my chairmanship of Homeland Security. So I was in my office, and they kind of knocked and said, they called the vote. And listen, normally the way votes happen in the Senate, they're 15-minute votes, but you got plenty of time. So that was an important meeting. So I kept the meeting going, and then finally got a knock, said, Senator, you really got to get down there to vote. So I walked down there. I did want to talk to Leader McConnell before I cast my vote because I want to convey to him that I want to stay fully engaged. I want to do everything I can to provide positive input, positively influence to get a better result addressing the forgotten men and women. The folks that I just talked about had to sell their house so they didn't lose it in foreclosure to pay off their Obamacare debts. So I did want to talk to him, but no, that was really happenstance in terms of how the way that all unfolded. And then I'm still talking to Leader McConnell, kind of winding up my conversation, and all of a sudden you hear applause in the chamber, and John McCain walks in, and so it ended up being a pretty dramatic moment that wasn't meant to be.
Sort of a coincidence. Well, yeah, you covered my next question, which was you were talking to Mitch McConnell for a long time before the final outcome, and it was making people nervous. And I was just wondering, if there was some last minute drama there. But you were just impressing upon him. You want to be a part of this process. I know this has frustrated the hell out of you. It didn't surprise me at all you voted yes. I know you're not going to be the guy who ultimately stands in the way of even a partial repeal if we can find some relief of this ACA misery. But what's your strategy now? Do you have any amendments that you'll bring up? Or you guys don't even really know what you're debating quite yet, do you?
The First Amendment I'll put forward, I'm not sure which one's going to be voted on, but I've got three primary amendments. The first one would be a full repeal. That won't pass, but I just want to make sure everybody realizes that even the repeal we may vote on today is just a partial repeal. It doesn't get rid of all the market distortions that have caused premiums to skyrocket. The Second Amendment, I think, is probably more crucial, and I think it actually might have a chance to pass because I think it'll be difficult for senators to vote against this. But this literally would end the special treatment for members of Congress under Obamacare.
Sweet.
And the reason I'm doing that is because we don't have enough members concerned about the forgotten men and women. Worried about, we'll spend more money, we'll throw more money at people that qualify for subsidies, but they don't have the courage to address those market distortions because they're politically popular. They're good talking points, but they're destroying the market. They're causing people to sell their homes so they don't lose them. And so I just want to make sure I put the members of Congress in the exact same position as that couple who have got to buy insurance on the Obamacare exchanges and they don't get employer subsidies. Congress exempted, in Obamacare. That is exactly how it should be. There should have been no special treatment, but the Obama administration, I think, literally circumvented the law and did this through the Office of Personnel Management so that members of Congress and their staffs do get special treatment.
Right, and that was after a promise that they would be in the same boat.
Back the employer contribution. I've never accepted it. I was buying health care in Wisconsin, just in individual markets, but every year my insurance policy was canceled because people just pulled out of the state. So I'm on the Senate plan, but I reimburse the government for the government contribution.
And then what's your third amendment quickly? Does it?
Well, that's going to really address and try and preserve and protect traditional Medicaid. So what I would do is I would end future enrollment for Medicaid expansion. That's not pulling the rug out from under anyone. Grandfather everybody who's signed up for Medicaid expansion. Now, those are able-bodied, working-age, childless adults. Mm-hmm. Where the federal government funds that Medicaid almost between 90 and 100%, depending on the year you're talking about. And then those savings, from the Senate bill, I would just apply toward traditional Medicaid, which is targeted toward disabled, the children, and the elderly. So I'm trying to fight to preserve traditional Medicaid, which is what we have in Wisconsin. We don't have Medicaid expansion. So I'm fighting to preserve the Medicaid that people do need in Wisconsin.
I assume that you would agree with me that this Cruz amendment is of critical importance if we're really going to pass a bill that drives down some costs immediately, some premium and some deductible costs immediately. Will you fight for that amendment to be in any final bill?
Yeah, Jay, I actually had a similar consumer freedom amendment. The leadership picked up his wording on that, but absolutely, that's what we need to do. Now, I think there are better ways of crafting it. I think you're better off splitting out those pools, and then with the pool that contains the high cost and pre-existing conditioned individuals, that's what you institute things like invisible high risk pools that Maine instituted. I presented all this information within the core group. It's just been largely ignored. And so, no, I'm absolutely going to fight for that. I've been fighting for that since day one.
I'm a little annoyed that we're already giving away a fallback position here of skinny repeal. This does very little in terms of actual repeal, but it's being sold as a possible last-ditch option. Do you think that creates some sort of safety net for members here who don't want to take a difficult vote on anything else?
Well, again, what that reveals is we have a broad spectrum in our conference. We have far too many members who told their voters that they were willing to repeal Obamacare. Some of them said by the root and branch. And now when it comes down to crunch time, they're not willing to do it. So that kind of vote right there would basically be a vote to say, okay, let's pass something from the conference with the House. And, obviously I'd love to be in that conference committee to craft what our final piece of legislation would be. But this is a complex, difficult, torturous journey here, and I can't tell you what the outcome is going to be.
We're talking with Senator Ron Johnson, of course. You've also said that the committee you chair is going to start holding hearings on health care no matter what passes, because more will be done. What do you mean by that? What do you want to investigate more fully? What do you want more answers on? What do you think the American people should know more about?
Well, we need just the basic information. What I've been critical about this process, coming from the manufacturing background, there's a problem-solving process. It starts with information, problem definition, root cause analysis. Based on that, you set achievable goals. Then you start designing your solutions, your strategies. In this case, legislation. In this alternate universe, it starts out with people's policy prescriptions, really lacking or completely void of any true information to back it up. That's why this place is so screwed up, Jay. So. Again, I'm not a fan of the federal government, and this process has just certainly confirmed that I'm right, and quite honestly, Wisconsinites are right when I ask literally tens of thousands of them, hey, show of hands, how many people think the federal government is efficient and effective? Like, nobody raised their hand. They all think it's pretty broken, dysfunctional. So, the conclusion of that is stop growing it. Stop sending your problems to Washington to be solved. We're very incapable of doing it.
Yes, unfortunately we are. Do you have any sort of insider prediction as to when we might have some sort of final vote on some package? I know I read some stuff this morning saying by the end of the week. I think that would be pretty aggressive.
Well, no, I think that's probably what the leaders set this thing up to do.
Oh, great.
At this point in time, the Senate bill with the Cruz amendment with the $100 billion additional thrown at the moderate Republicans, that failed. That was 7-8 votes short. So that's pretty well dead right there. So we're going to have to come up with something to pass that can get 50 votes so the vice president can break the tie so we can send it into conference. I mean, right now I think that's probably the best. So we'll have to go through this vote-orama. People get to offer amendments. Unless it's a resolution that we all support the troops, I have a hard time believing anything's going to pass. Although, my amendment making Congress basically put them in the same position as other Americans, that'll be a pretty tough vote for members of Congress to cast no on. That they really would be voting for special treatment for themselves. Again, I want to put members of Congress in the same boat as that couple who lost their house, so that we are a little more sympathetic and we actually do something to bring down these premiums that have been artificially increased because of Obamacare.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the effort is just going to be to get something to conference committee rather than to pass something significant?
I think that's what the vote last night showed is about our only path.
Yeah, that's terrible. It's very frustrating. On a different matter.
Nobody can out-frustrate me, Jay.
Yeah, I know. On a different matter here, I did want to ask you as well about this. The House has now passed a bill that adds new sanctions to Russia, Iran, and North Korea. I think the Senate bill was initially just Russia and Iran. So they've added North Korea. It's going to take some melding of bills here. It would also bar a president from easing these sanctions without congressional approval. Is that a good bill, do you think, and will President Trump sign it?
My preference would be to always separate these sanctions by country. I'm not real nuts about, when we were discussing Iran sanctions, all of a sudden we loaded up Russian sanctions on top of that. Now you're throwing on North Korea. Listen, these countries need to be sanctioned. I would rather have the bills completely separate. I think you are seeing another branch of government assert its proper role in terms of foreign policy. I think that's a good thing. Certainly, as the chairman of the European Subcommittee on Foreign Relations, I provide a fair amount of comfort to our European allies that in Congress we really do support NATO and our alliance, that type of thing. So in general, yes, I think it's a good bill. I'm sure it'll pass. I think it's good that Congress reasserts its co-equal branch status and authority as it relates to foreign policy. But my preference would be to keep these sanctions bills separate country by country.
Yeah, I like the idea of more congressional control, too, although you know how reluctant presidents are to sign away some of their own power. So it'll be interesting to see whether Trump ultimately signs it. Thanks a lot for your time this morning, sir. Do appreciate it.
Have a great day.